You step into your backyard and notice it again. That stubborn yellow bloom by the fence, the one you meant to pull yesterday. The grass is still damp, the air quiet, and when you finally tug at it, the ground resists just slightly, as if you're not just pulling a plant, but interrupting something. Everything around you feels ordinary. The coiled hose, the mower resting in the sun, the small patches of dirt that suggest chores, not questions. But the real story isn't happening where you're looking. Beneath that thin layer of soil, a quiet system is already at work, moving nutrients, reshaping the ground, cooperating with organisms you've probably never considered. This isn't poetic exaggeration. It's measurable, observable biology. And that weed you're about to remove might be playing a role your yard quietly depends on. It's a strange thought, I know. The idea that something so easy to dismiss could be doing something useful. So before you pull it out, it's worth asking, what exactly are you removing? This is backyard biology. Looks like a problem on the surface is often a signal from below it. Take the dandelion, for instance. It sends down a deep taproot, anywhere from about 15 to 60 centimeters, allowing it to survive in places where thinner, more delicate roots simply fail. That depth matters more than it seems. Compacted soil makes it difficult for water, air, and other roots to move freely. In simple terms, the ground becomes too tight, and plants struggle to grow. A deep root like this doesn't just endure that pressure, it quietly pushes through it, creating small channels in soil that would otherwise remain sealed. Not dramatic work, but persistent, and surprisingly effective. And it doesn't stop there. Dandelions can also draw nutrients from deeper layers of the soil and bring them closer to the surface. Some agricultural extension sources even note that this process can help improve compacted soil over time, rather than simply invading it. In a backyard setting, that means the plant you're tempted to remove might be one of the few still functioning when conditions aren't ideal. So the first layer of the story is this: not every weed is taking from your yard. Some are responding to stress, reshaping the soil, and leaving behind changes that last longer than their brief appearance. But what happens next is the part almost no one talks about. Now the picture widens. Your backyard isn't just grass and soil, it's a living network. Plants, fungi, insects, and microorganisms are constantly exchanging energy, nutrients, and signals beneath the surface. It helps to think of it like an old neighborhood, quiet on the outside, but threaded underneath with pipes, cables, and connections that keep everything running. You see the houses, you don't see the infrastructure. Your yard works the same way. That weed isn't standing alone. It's connected to a much larger system. And some of these plants do more than simply survive. They support, the network itself. Researchers have found that certain so-called weeds can serve as valuable resources for pollinators and overall biodiversity. In fact, some species attract more pollinators than many plants commonly recommended for home gardens. Pollinators, that's the part most people miss. A plant dismissed as unwanted may still be feeding bees, supporting insects, and keeping a patch of land biologically active at times when other flowers are scarce. It's not just filling space, it's maintaining continuity in the system. So when you look at that weed, you're not just seeing a plant, you're looking at a node in a network. And the real question isn't whether it belongs in a perfect lawn, it's what happens to everything connected to it when it's gone. Now the story connects directly to you. At the exact moment you're reading this, it's already happening in your backyard. The soil beneath your feet isn't still. Roots are growing. Fungi are linking themselves to those roots. And nutrients are moving through a network you almost never see. Researchers have shown that mycorrhizal fungi, the kind that attach to plant roots, can significantly increase nutrient uptake, especially phosphorus, one of the most critical elements for plant growth. In simple terms, the fungi below ground help plants access more of what they need from the soil, and the dandelion can be part of that process. One study examining dandelions and mycorrhizal fungi found that allowing the plant to grow during the winter months can increase the presence of fungal inoculum in the soil. That means it may help sustain the fungal community that future plants will rely on when the seasons change. And it was there the whole time. So the plant you remove in a minute can influence what happens in the soil months later, not always dramatically, not in every yard, but often enough to matter in real ecosystems. The next time you kneel down and reach for that root, remember, you're not just touching a plant, You're touching a point of connection, and that connection quietly shapes what comes next. Here is where the tone shifts. This stops being only about weeds and starts becoming about attention. Because your backyard is showing you something most lawns have hidden for years. Strength is not always orderly, and usefulness is not always obvious. You've been trained to recognize neatness and to treat anything outside it as a problem. But the soil doesn't recognize your categories. It responds, to coverage, structure, roots, fungi, to the quiet, ongoing work of keeping life in motion. A dandelion doesn't ask permission to grow deep, to break through compacted ground, or to persist when conditions turn harsh. It simply does what it's built to do. That may be part of why weeds provoke such a strong reaction. They're not just plants. They are reminders that nature doesn't organize itself around human preference. It adapts, repairs, persists, and sometimes restores balance in ways that only become clear after we've tried to remove them. You're not separate from your yard. You're part of the same system. The soil isn't passive, and the life beneath it isn't disconnected from you. Even the smallest plant may be doing something more consequential than your first glance suggests. What you call a weed might simply be your yard's way of saying, something here is still working, quietly, steadily, and in your favor. That small yellow plant isn't just a mistake, it's a deep root, a signal. From the soil, a living connection. It can loosen compacted ground, support underground fungi, and feed a wider network of life. Your backyard isn't an empty space between chores. It's a system that keeps working, even when you're not paying attention. And once you see that, it's hard to unsee it. In the next video, you'll discover why some of the most overlooked plants in your yard are often the ones doing the most honest work. Subscribe if you want to start seeing your backyard differently. Not just with more information, but with a different kind of awareness. And if this changed how you look at that weed, a like helps more of these ideas reach people who might never think twice before pulling it out. So before you do, pause for a moment and look down. When was the last time you really paid attention to the ground beneath your feet?